I have a billionaire dad who loves me with his life. Every day in class, 30 of my bodyguards stand at the back of the classroom. If a classmate accidentally bumped into me, they would be beaten on the spot. If a teacher said one thing about me, they would be fired immediately. I protested, but my dad said, "Your mother told me to take good care of you before she died, and I can't let you get hurt in the slightest." I couldn't stand this suffocating love and secretly ran away from home. My dad used his connections to search the entire city, and I was caught and brought back in just half an hour, and he imprisoned me in the hilltop manor, not allowing anyone to approach me. To make me obedient, my dad tried every means to please her, but I could never accept this extreme love. My dad was annoyed and found a lookalike who looked 8 parts like me to be his daughter. The stand-in, relying on my dad's favor, did whatever she wanted. She led a group of friends/girlfriends and thugs into the manor where I lived. Where did this despicable person come from, daring to get plastic surgery to look like me and try to steal my dad? I'll tear you apart today. She burned all my hair, cut off my tongue, and ordered thugs to ravage and humiliate me. After I was tortured to death, my dad arrived late. The stand-in dragged my body in front of my dad, triumphantly saying, "Dad, this gold digger was hiding here trying to ruin our father-daughter relationship. I've already killed her for you." Just because of a last word from my mother, my dad became an extreme daughter-protecting maniac. He said that anyone who approached me, except for him, might hurt me. Under the guise of protecting me, he imprisoned me in the manor for 3 years. But recently, he found a stand-in with a similar appearance to be his daughter. He doted on the stand-in like his own daughter for a few months. To anger me, he often sent me videos of him spending lavishly on the stand-in. Just as I was sitting in the yard admiring the video, a commotion suddenly sounded outside the yard. My dad runs here every 2 to 3 days. Today, I'm going to see what treasure is hidden in this manor. But billionaire Shen said that this manor is his private forbidden area and no one is allowed to enter, right? That's right, Tiffany Shen. I heard that someone used to just wander around the manor a few times and billionaire Shen broke their hands and feet and gouged out their eyes. Isn't it bad for us to sneak in without his permission? What are you afraid of? I'm the apple of one's eye, and my dad can't bear to blame me. Listening to the noise outside the yard, I frowned slightly, feeling a sense of foreboding. I know better than anyone how crazy my dad is. The reason he imprisoned me here was because he was afraid that someone would approach me and hurt me. Someone once got lost and came to this hilltop manor. As a result, my dad broke their hands and feet, gouged out their eyes, and they disappeared from the world the next day. At first, my dad only guarded against outsiders, but after I ran away from home, he felt that the bodyguards and nanny around me would corrupt me, so he dismissed them all. He would rather personally bring me food 3 times a day than let anyone other than him have contact with me. If those people outside the yard came in, they would probably be in big trouble. I quickly got up and wanted to remind those people to leave quickly. But just as I reached the door was kicked open. A face that looked 8 parts like me came into view. Before I could speak, the other person slapped me hard across the face. Where did this despicable person come from, daring to get plastic surgery to look like me and secretly hide in my dad's private forbidden area? Do you want to steal my billionaire heiress status? The sudden slap made my head buzz. You vile plastic surgery woman, do you know where this is? How dare you just barge in? You even deliberate. Why got plastic surgery to look like Tiffany Shen in order to attract billionaire Shen's attention? You don't even want your face in order to squeeze into a wealthy family? It wasn't until this moment that I realized that the person who suddenly ran in to hit me was Tiffany Shen, the stand-in daughter my dad had found. Because of my dad's morbid possessiveness, I had always been very cold to him and had never even called him dad. Perhaps to vent his anger, or perhaps to make up for the lack in his heart, he searched everywhere for someone who looked like me. And Tiffany Shen was the stand-in he found who looked most like me. At this moment, Tiffany Shen's face was full of anger, and the look in her eyes could spit fire. You despicable thing, knowing that my dad dotes on me, you tried every means to get plastic surgery to look like me, wanting to be my stand-in and replace me, right? Tiffany Shen's attitude was arrogant and vile, but considering that she didn't know the truth, I didn't plan to argue with her about this slap. Instead, I kindly advised, "This is not a place for you to come." You should leave quickly before Mr. Shen arrives, or no one will be able to help you. However, Tiffany Shen not only didn't appreciate it, but instead grabbed my hair and cursed, "How dare you call Dad's name so casually? You despicable thing, you only took a fancy to my dad being a billionaire, so you sneaked into this manor? Now you're pretending to chase me away because you're afraid I'll ruin your scheme and cut off your billionaire heiress dream, right? Today, I'm going to let you know the consequences of trying to steal my dad." Saying that, Tiffany Shen kicked me directly to the ground. I stumbled into a rock, and a cut instantly broke open on my forehead. I touched the blood on my forehead, looked at the aggressive Tiffany Shen, and said coldly, "Aren't you afraid Mr. Shen will find out about your willfulness?" Tiffany Shen snorted disdainfully and said with contempt, "Oh, you know how much my dad dotes on me? If my face is scratched even a little, he'll feel so bad that he won't be able to sleep for days. Would he blame me for hitting you, some wild girl who popped up out of nowhere?" Several of Tiffany Shen's friends/girlfriends also echoed with sneers. That's right, billionaire Shen is raising Tiffany Shen like a treasure. What can you, a plastic surgery woman who imitates Tiffany Shen, compare to her? Tiffany Shen, billionaire Shen is very wealthy, and there must be many gold diggers like this despicable person around him who want to break into a wealthy family and compete with you for the heiress status. Today, we'll just kill the chicken to warn the monkeys and cut off the crooked thoughts of those vile gold diggers. That's right, let those despicable people who want to climb the social ladder know who the billionaire heiress really is. These people were all sharp-tongued, with vicious eyes, as if they couldn't wait to tear me apart. My expression was solemn, and I said coldly, "You'd better find out who I am." Tiffany Shen raised her chin and said with disdain, "You're just a plastic surgery woman who sneaked into the manor. Why would I bother to find out your identity? I'm the billionaire heiress. What are you? How can you compare to me?" Saying that, she gave a vicious look and ordered her friends/girlfriends behind her, "Take off this despicable person's clothes. I want to see if she has the ability to make her body look like mine too." Hearing this, her friends/girlfriends immediately rushed over and violently tore at my clothes. While I tried my best to protect my clothes, I shouted sternly, "Stop, I am Mr. Shen's biological daughter." Hearing what I said, several people stopped immediately. Tiffany Shen stood aside, her expression becoming very strange, squinting at me. "You said you are my dad's biological daughter?" I said seriously, "That's right, you are just a stand-in he found. If he knows you are Hutton me like this, he will never let you go." I explained the truth, thinking Tiffany Shen would stop here. But unexpectedly, they burst out laughing almost at the same instant. This despicable person is crazy about becoming a billionaire heiress, right? Tiffany Shen is billionaire Shen's publicly recognized apple of one's eye. You're just relying on the fact that you look a bit like Tiffany Shen, yet you dare to turn things upside down and say that our Tiffany Shen is your stand-in? You're just a plastic surgery woman who sneaked in. Where did you get the nerve to say such a thing? Tiffany Shen curled her lips, revealing a sinister smile. "I thought you had some tricks up your sleeve to be able to get plastic surgery to look like me and hide here to attract my dad's attention. I didn't expect you to be a brainless idiot. I've been living in the Shen residence for so long, and I didn't even know my dad had a biological daughter. How many lives do you have? How dare you tell such an outrageous lie? If you were really a Shen family heiress, how could you be living alone in this secluded manor?" Saying that, Tiffany Shen snorted again and ordered her friends/girlfriends, "Continue stripping, don't leave a single piece." Hearing this, those friends/girlfriends didn't hesitate and tore at my clothes again. Obviously, they didn't know that the reason why this hilltop manor was deserted was because the entire hill had been bought by my dad. Without his permission, no one could set foot here, or the consequences would be disastrous. Originally, there were bodyguards and nanny in this manor, but just because my dad was afraid that I would be corrupted, he dismissed everyone. After imprisoning me, my dad never mentioned me to outsiders again because he was angry with me. Unexpectedly, these things became the reason why they didn't believe my identity. Seeing my clothes being torn to shreds, I panicked and shouted again, "I really am Mr. Shen's biological daughter. If why? Oh, you don't believe me, call him." Hearing what I said, they not only didn't stop, but instead intensified their efforts. While frantically tearing at my clothes, they slapped me wildly across the face. You despicable thing, you're still being stubborn? See how we'll beat you awake today. Soon, my face was red and hot, swollen high. My whole person was disheveled, scantily clad, revealing a large expanse of skin. Seeing this, Tiffany Shen's eyes narrowed, and she said quietly, "This despicable person's hair is too unsightly, hindering her body from being exposed." Saying that, she smiled charmingly and took out a lighter. She lit my hair directly. The fire spread rapidly on my head, and the intense burning sensation enveloped me crazily. For a moment, my cheeks, ears, and entire scalp felt a strong burning pain. I couldn't bear the pain and subconsciously used my hands to put out the fire, but my hands were held down tightly by them. In a short while, my hair was burned clean. My scalp was full of burn marks. Seeing this, Tiffany Shen finally laughed in satisfaction. "Ha ha ha, look at her ugly bald look, like a tortoise that's been stripped of its shell." Her friends/girlfriends also laughed and applauded. I stared at them, trembling and shouting, "You will regret this." After being imprisoned here by my dad for many years, I tried to escape, but I was caught back in less than half an hour each time. Many people were even beaten and abused because of my escape. In order not to harm the innocent, I gave up escaping and completely lost my freedom. I could only stare blankly at the empty manor day after day. This made me feel a burst of anger in my heart. And now, I have to endure the humiliation and torment brought by the stand-in. The anger in my heart instantly transformed into intense hatred. Tiffany Shen walked up to me and stepped heavily on my face with her foot. "You still dare to yell at me? Since you can't say anything I like to hear from that dog mouth of you. Then don't speak anymore in the future. Cut off this despicable person's tongue." For with an order, a thug behind Tiffany Shen immediately walked towards me with a knife. Seeing this, one of the timid friends/girlfriends said with some trepidation, "Tiffany Shen, this is billionaire Shen's territory after all. We're making such a big scene, isn't it a bit inappropriate?" Tiffany Shen said nonchalantly, "What's inappropriate? I'm the billionaire heiress. Everything in the Shen family will be mine in the future. I'm just teaching a shameless, despicable person a lesson in my own home. Who dares to say a word to me? Besides, my dad dotes on me so much, he wouldn't even frown at me even if I took this despicable person's life." The other friends/girlfriends also echoed, "That's right, our Tiffany Shen is the apple of one's eye that billionaire Shen holds in his palm. What is there that she can't do? Billionaire Shen will only feel sorry for our Tiffany Shen for tiring herself out by teaching the despicable person a lesson. That's right, he might even think that our Tiffany Shen is good at teaching people and put her in charge of the company ahead of schedule." After being said that by them, the timid friend/girlfriend no longer had any worries and watched the show with peace of mind. Tiffany Shen, relying on my dad's favor, hired many thugs at high prices and did whatever she wanted. Her thugs were all cold-blooded and ruthless, often injuring and crippling people. I lay on the ground, watching the thug with the knife getting closer and closer to me, and I couldn't help but scream in panic, "I really am Mr. Shen's biological daughter. If you do this, he will never let you go." However, my threat had no effect. The thug was like a heartless machine, walking up to me and reaching out to me directly with the knife. I wanted to escape, but I was held down tightly by Tiffany Shen's friends/girlfriends. I wanted to dodge, but the cold, shiny knife had already pried deeply into my mouth. With a wave of the knife, in a daze, I saw a lot of blood and a tongue that had been cut off, falling from my mouth. Pain to the extreme. It was as if all the nerves in my body had been severed, and I was about to faint. I was like a pool of mud, lying in a pool of blood, unable to move, and barely breathing. Tiffany Shen crossed her arms and admired all of this, saying condescendingly, "With your kind of trash, even if you get plastic surgery to look like me, my dad would never look at you straight. In his heart, he only recognizes me, his only daughter, understand? Not just Tom, Dick, or Harry have as good a life as I do, and not just anyone can catch my dad's eye. Since you're so eager to recognize a dad, then I'll reward you with a few sugar daddies." Saying that, she looked at the thugs behind her and said coldly, "This despicable person is rewarded for you to play with. Whoever puts in the most effort, I'll reward with 1 million. Hearing Tiffany Shen say this, the thug's eyes lit up instantly. One by one, they rubbed their fists, rushing towards me like jackals. I collapsed on the ground, without the slightest strength to resist. I wanted to shout, but without my tongue, my mouth was full of blood, and I couldn't make a sound at all. I could only let them ravage me. Although my dad stubbornly imprisoned me here. But he never hurt me in the slightest. Instead, he protected me like his own life. Even if I just scratched a little skin, he would be so anxious that he would summon all the authoritative surgeon for treatment. Even if I didn't want to call him dad, he never forced me. He said that one day I would understand his good intentions as a father. But now, I was submerged under this group of thugs, helpless. Helplessness and despair deeply enveloped me. I couldn't speak, only tears poured out. Dad, is this the result you wanted? Tiffany Shen's friends/girlfriends watched the show and praised Tiffany Shen. Tiffany Shen was born to be a billionaire heiress. Her methods of teaching people are really impressive. That's right, look at this despicable person. She was still stubborn at the beginning, but now she's been tortured to tears. Haha, she probably won't dare to dream of marrying into a wealthy family in the future. Congratulations to Tiffany Shen for successfully eliminating a despicable person. Let's see who else dares to compete with you for the heiress status in the future. Tiffany Shen was praised with a smile on her face, like a general who had won a battle, and the smugness at the corner of her mouth never faded. However, the excited thugs suddenly showed strange expressions. The next moment, a thug got up and pointed at me to report, "Miss Shen, this woman is dead." Hearing this, Tiffany Shen frowned and said with disgust, "How unlucky. Quickly dig a hole and bury her. Don't pollute my dad's eyes." As soon as she finished speaking, my dad walked into the manor yard. "What are you doing?" As soon as my dad spoke, everyone looked at him in unison. He was wearing a custom-tailored suit, and he was noble, imposing, and dignified. The originally aggressive Tiffany Shen instantly became gentle and obedient when she saw my dad. With a sweet smile, she stepped forward to hold my dad's arm and said coquettishly, "Dad, aren't you having an emergency meeting? Why do you have time to come here?" My dad ignored Tiffany Shen's question and asked instead, "Don't you know that this manor is a place I strictly forbid you from setting foot in? What are you doing here?" My dad's voice didn't carry the slightest emotion, but the sharp eyes reflected a chillingly sharp light. Making eye contact with my dad's gaze, Tiffany Shen subconsciously shuddered. She cautiously opened her mouth. "Dad, I saw a plastic surgery woman sneaking into the manor suspiciously, so I followed her in to catch her." Hearing this, my dad frowned slightly and looked towards the manor. "You didn't go inside the manor, did why?" "Oh, you?" Tiffany Shen immediately waved her hand. "No. We were just teaching the plastic surgery woman a lesson in the yard." Seeing that the atmosphere was not right, Tiffany Shen's friends/girlfriends quickly echoed, "Mr. Shen, Tiffany Shen knows that this place is very important to you, so she naturally wouldn't mess around." "That's right, she saw someone sneaking in from outside the yard and was worried sick, afraid that person would be detrimental to you. Tiffany Shen cares too much about you, and she's just worried and confused. Please don't blame her." After hearing these words, my dad's cold expression softened a little. But his voice was still cold. "In the future, you still shouldn't come to this place." Tiffany Shen looked puzzled. "Why? I think the scenery of this hilltop manor is very good. It's a bit of a pity to abandon it here. Why don't I move here to live in the future?" When asking this, Tiffany Shen blinked her big eyes, looking at my dad with expectation, like a kitten waiting for its owner to nod. But my dad's face, which had just softened, suddenly turned cold again. Seeing this, Tiffany Shen's expression stiffened, and she said aggrievedly, "Dad, did I say something wrong?" My dad slowly raised his eyes and looked at the window of my room. Suddenly, the corners of his mouth curved up, revealing a meaningful smile. Then, he looked at Tiffany Shen and said gently, "No, I just think this place is too shabby and doesn't match your billionaire heiress status. If you want to move to another place, Dad will buy you an estate." As my dad spoke, his gaze unconsciously glanced at the window of my room. It seemed that he was hoping that I could see this scene through the window. Hearing these words, Tiffany Shen's face instantly filled with an excited smile. "Really? Dad, are you really willing to buy me an estate?" and estate is basically a symbol of status. Once she owned an estate, her identity as a billionaire heiress would be firmly established. How could this not excite the vain Tiffany Shen? My dad nodded, saying meaningfully, "Of course, who told you to be so obedient?" Before Tiffany Shen could say anything, my dad continued, "This place is my private forbidden area. If it weren't for your sake today, none of your friends/girlfriends and thugs would want to leave here alive." My dad's words were light and airy, but everyone at the scene was shocked. They knew that my dad was decisive and always kept his word. In the fearful gaze of those people, Tiffany Shen leaned her head on my dad's shoulder. I knew dad loved me the most. The corners of my dad's mouth raised slightly, and he said softly, "Do you know what I like most about you?" Tiffany Shen looked at my dad with anticipation. "What?" My dad gently rubbed Tiffany Shen's hair with his hand. "I like you, such an obedient daughter, the most." Hearing my dad's praise, Tiffany Shen smiled even sweeter. "Oh, right." The next moment, she suddenly reacted, and a gleam flashed in her eyes. She walked quickly to my front, dragged my body to my dad, and said triumphantly, "Dad, this plastic surgery woman sneaked into the manor. I've already killed her for you." I lay on the ground, lifeless. My hair was burned off, my scalp was full of scars, my face was swollen beyond recognition, and there were bloodstains everywhere, which was shocking. The blood gushing from the severed tongue was even more horrible and unsightly, and my face was unrecognizable. My dad didn't even recognize me. Even the look in his eyes was full of disgust, as if he had seen something dirty. His eyes only stayed on me for a moment, and then he looked at Tiffany Shen again, praising her with doting, "Well done. But you still shouldn't do this kind of thing yourself in the future. I'll feel sorry for you if you get hurt." After saying that, he didn't look at me again and turned to order the bodyguards he had brought, "Go dig a hole outside the yard and bury the person, don't dirt." Why my yard? 2 bodyguards obeyed the order and quickly dragged my body away from the manor yard. And my dad's gaze once again glanced at the window of my room. Perhaps because he didn't see the figure he wanted to see, he became a little impatient. The next moment, his face darkened, and he made a phone call, coldly instructing, "Bring the food in the car over here." Soon, my dad's driver trotted over with a few insulated boxes. My dad placed the food on the table in the courtyard, one plate at a time. The dishes were varied, colorful, fragrant, and delicious. They were all prepared according to my taste. Seeing this, Tiffany Shen was happy and touched. "Dad, you're too good to me. You even specially prepared food for me." My dad glanced at my window and deliberately raised his voice to say to Tiffany Shen, "Good daughter, you worked hard teaching people a lesson today. Dad feels sorry for you. Come on, Dad will feed you." Saying that, my dad also considerately picked up food and fed it to Tiffany Shen's mouth. Although my dad doted on Tiffany Shen, it was the first time he had made such a considerate and meticulous move. Tiffany Shen was simply overwhelmed by the favor, and even the act of opening her mouth to chew and swallow was full of joy. Her friend/girlfriend saw the scene and sighed with envy. "Look, I told you, our Tiffany Shen worked hard teaching people a lesson, and billionaire Shen will definitely feel sorry for her. I really envy Tiffany Shen for having such a generous and caring good dad like billionaire Shen." That's right, just now that shameless plastic surgery woman offended dad with Tiffany Shen. It's really ignorant and ridiculous. Under the envious gaze of everyone, Tiffany Shen was fed full by my dad, bite by bite. Her whole face blossomed with smiles. But my dad was getting more and more absent-minded. His gaze would occasionally glance at the manor window. He did so much just to let me see, just hoping that I would react. "Mr. Shen, the person has been buried." 2 bodyguards returned to report respectfully. Seeing that there was no movement in the manor, my dad got up directly and deliberately opened his mouth loudly towards the window over there. "Tiffany, I'll take you to see the estate now. If you like it, we'll just buy it today." Hearing this, Tiffany Shen was so excited, she quickly took my dad's arm and walked outside the yard. Okay, I like whatever dad sends me." Under Tiffany Shen's eager urging, my dad walked outside the yard. He took 3 steps and turned his head twice, but he never saw my figure. This feeling of being completely ignored made my dad, who was already sulking, feel even more unhappy. His face suddenly changed, and he stopped. He shook off Tiffany Shen's hand and turned to walk towards the manor. After entering the manor, he quickly opened my room door. "Are you really planning to never recognize me again?" My dad's words came to an abrupt end because the room was empty. He frowned and looked for me everywhere in the manor, unwilling to give up. He didn't let go of any corner. But my figure was nowhere to be seen. My dad walked out of the manor and stared at Tiffany Shen with a deep gaze, asking, "Where is the person in this manor?" My dad's voice was full of suppressed anger, as if it would erupt at any moment. Tiffany Shen widened her eyes, looking confused. "What person? Other than that despicable woman who got plastic surgery to look like me just now, I didn't see anyone else in the manor." Hearing this, my dad's expression changed drastically. "Got plastic surgery to look like you? You mean, the person just now looked very much like you?" Tiffany Shen didn't take it seriously. "That's right, that's why I taught her a hard lesson. That despicable woman knew you doted on me, so she specially got plastic surgery to look like me and secretly hid here, to attract your attention and replace me in this way. She even claimed to be your biological obter. Don't you think it's ridiculous?" Saying that, Tiffany Shen even snickered deliberately. But at this time, my dad's expression had become extremely ugly. He suddenly stepped forward and grabbed the bodyguard's collar. "Where did you bury the person?" The bodyguard was so frightened that cold sweat broke out, and he quickly pointed outside the yard, trembling, in the west side wasteland of the manor. Hearing this, my dad ran towards outside the manor yard like crazy. "Dad? Dad, where are you going?" Tiffany Shen shouted in confusion, quickening her pace to follow. The others also began to run. My dad, usually as steady as a mountain, lost all reason and charged forward, running wildly. He headed straight for the west side wasteland of the manor the bodyguard had mentioned, spotting a patch of freshly turned earth. He immediately bent down, frantically digging with his bare hands. His eyes were bloodshot, his face etched with anxiety. He dug with incredible speed. Tiffany Shen, who was right behind him, saw this and immediately complained, "Dad, what do you mean by rushing over here to dig the grave of this despicable woman? Are you that concerned about her? Didn't you say you only recognized me as your daughter?" Ignoring Tiffany Shen's questions, my dad paid no attention. He was like a man possessed, digging frantically, not stopping even when his hands were bleeding. Tiffany Shen couldn't stand being ignored. She quickly stepped forward, came to my dad's side, and continued, "Dad, wake up. I'm your sweetheart. You're so concerned about this vile woman. Have you even considered my feelings? What's so good about this despicable woman?" Tiffany Shen's friends/girlfriends also spoke up for her, indignant. "That's right, Mr. Shen, this despicable woman just had plastic surgery to look a bit like Tiffany, but in the end, she's just a stand-in who can't hold a candle to Tiffany. Don't let her hurt Tiffany's feelings." Exactly, this despicable woman deliberately made herself look like Tiffany to get your attention. Don't fall for it. She relies on her resemblance to Tiffany to act all high and mighty, even going so far as to say Tiffany is her stand-in, trying to drive a wedge between you and Tiffany. A gold digger with a sharp tongue like that deserves to die. They were all righteously indignant, listing my faults. But my dad was focused solely on digging, not paying them any attention. It wasn't until his hands were covered in blood that I was finally unearthed. My dad picked me up and quickly wiped the blood and dirt from my face. The moment he saw my face clearly, he roared at the two bodyguards, "Quick, call an ambulance." Hearing this, one of the bodyguards stepped forward and advised, "Mr. Shen, she's already dead." Before he could finish, my dad pulled out a knife and plunged it into the bodyguard's chest. His face twisted with rage, he yelled, "Who said she's dead? With me here, how could she die?" 9. A private room in a private hospital. The nation's top surgeons were gathered there. Each expert had a furrowed brow and a face full of anxiety. My dad, on the other hand, stood outside the room, waiting without leaving for even a moment. Behind him stood Tiffany Shen and her friends/girlfriends. A surgeon came out of the room, shook his head at my dad, and sighed, "Mr. Shen, she's already dead." Before he could finish, my dad grabbed his head and slammed it against the wall. "I promised her mother that I would never let anything happen to her. How could she die? If she dies, none of you will live. Under my dad's pressure, the surgeon wiped the blood from his head and cautiously returned to the room to continue trying to save me. Seeing my dad like this, Tiffany Shen's friends/girlfriends frowned, whispering to each other in confusion. Tiffany, Mr. Shen is digging up graves and rushing people to the hospital. It seems like he really cares about that despicable woman. Yeah, what's their relationship? Judging from Mr. Shen's expression, could he turn on us for that woman's sake? Faced with her friend/girlfriend's concerns, Tiffany Shen's face was full of arrogance, and she replied with great certainty, "No way, I'm Dad's sweetheart, he wouldn't bear to treat me like that. Right now, that despicable woman should be Dad's adopted daughter he keeps at the manor. It's normal for him to be upset when his adopted daughter has an accident. I can coax him later." Hearing this, the friend/girlfriend's hearts finally dropped. That's right. Look at Mr. Shen. Even when he's angry, he only hits doctors and kills bodyguards but doesn't bear to say a harsh word to our Tiffany. Yes, such obvious favoritism is enough to show Tiffany's unique position in Mr. Shen's heart. An adopted daughter who can't be brought to the table is not even worth one of our Tiffany's fingers. After confirming this, Tiffany Shen became even more confident. She couldn't help but pout, put on a very aggrieved look, and said softly to my dad, "Dad, that despicable woman has been trying to drive a wedge between us, saying she is your biological daughter and I am her stand-in, so I asked people to teach her a lesson. Who knew she was so short-lived and died so quickly? I really couldn't stand others destroying our relationship, so I did that to warn others. Dad, you shouldn't blame me, right?" Hearing this, my dad turned his head and looked at Tiffany Shen coldly, without saying a word. Seeing that he didn't speak, Tiffany Shen shook my dad's hand coquettishly and continued, "Dad, I know you love me very much, but not everyone who looks like me is me. You already have me as your daughter, so there's no need to raise such a despicable stand-in. I will take good care of you and take care of you in your old age in the future." Tiffany Shen thought that she had said something considerate. He should be moved by my dad. But my dad's face didn't show any emotion, and his voice didn't have any emotion. "Tiffany Shen, there's something I forgot to tell you. Ashley Lee is my biological daughter and the person I care about most in this world." My dad's voice was very soft, but it was like a heavy hammer, directly causing Tiffany Shen to stagger back. Tiffany Shen's face turned as white as a dead person. Her group of friends/girlfriends were even more frightened and shivering, saying one after another, "Mr. Shen, we didn't know she was your daughter. If we had known, we wouldn't have dared to do anything to her even if we had 100 guts. Yes, Mr. Shen, Tiffany Shen told us to do all of this. Stripping her clothes, burning her hair, cutting her tongue, and torturing your daughter to death were all Tiffany Shen's ideas and have nothing to do with us. If you want to blame someone, blame Tiffany Shen. We are innocent." The friends/girlfriends who were originally called sisters and were united with Tiffany Shen. Instantly, they all pointed the finger at Tiffany Shen. Faced with the betrayal of her friends/girlfriends, Tiffany Shen's eyes turned red with anger. "You despicable women, you were all shouting louder than anyone else when you were hitting people. Now that something has happened, you're trying to pass the buck, right? With your despicable virtues, you were born to be dogs." The group of friends/girlfriends refused to give in. "Then what about you? What do you think you are?" "That's right. Do you still think you are the billionaire heiress that Mr. Shen holds in the palm of his hand? In the end, you are just a stand-in. You were adopted by Mr. Shen because of his biological daughter. You dead stand-in, you even tortured his biological daughter to death. Tell me, shouldn't you die?" They quarreled endlessly, ruthlessly throwing each other into the dust. They didn't notice that my dad's eyes had become blood red. The rescue lasted all night. My dad seemed to have turned into a statue, guarding outside the door all night without moving. It wasn't until the next morning that the door of the operating room slowly opened. As soon as the door opened, the faces of all the expert doctors who came out of the operating room changed drastically. Because outside the door, my dad stood before them like the Grim Reaper, covered in blood. His eyes were bloodshot and his face was haggard. At his feet were the bodies of Tiffany Shen and others lying in a chaotic pile. Each one of them died tragically and with their eyes wide open. It seemed that they had suffered great pain before their deaths. Seeing this, all the doctors knelt on the ground, shivering. "Mr. Shen, she's already dead. We really can't do anything." At this moment, they were extremely panicked, afraid that they would become a corpse piled on the ground in the next second. But my dad didn't even look at them. He just strode forward, passed them indifferently, and walked into the room. He came to the bedside and gently stroked my pale face. Then, he gently picked me up and walked slowly to the window. Facing the wind, he looked at me gently. "Ashley, I promised your mother that I would always take care of you. No matter where you are, I will be with you." After saying that, he hugged my corpse and jumped from the 19th floor window.